Hello, everybody. Get your little Zach Brown band to get you kicked off right. This is part 2 of our DFS Army podcast, not podcast, but quick video to help you figure out how to play a little bit of hockey. If you remember, if you watched part 1, part 1 was done to bring you up to speed a little bit on the regular hockey thought process and whatnot. My name is Choppodong. You can follow me at Twitter or on Twitter at Choppodong. You can also follow me in the DFS Army in our VIP Slack chat forums. I am a coach, contributor, mentor, whatever you want to call it, that specializes in getting the brand newest players up to speed as quickly as possible. We also have experts that can bring you past that intermediate level and make you even better. Don't discount the fact that I focus on the newest players and think that that means that we can't help you too, because we do provide the best community on the web, in my opinion, and we have a lot of support and a lot of testimonials backing that claim. So you're not going to find a better bang for your buck. If you heard the part 1, you know there's a coupon code out there using my name, CHOP, C-H-O-P, and getting that 20% discount off of your subscription for as long as you stay a member. So remember that if you decide to give us a try. If this is your first time finding us, go back, listen to part 1. I'll try and link it in the description below so that you don't miss any space or miss any time. And we're going to dive in. We're going to finish this slate up. If you notice, if you remember, we started off here by looking at the starting lineups and targeting some teams. I told you the teams that I'm looking for today just based on fantasy points for and fantasy points against. I'm looking for teams that score a lot of points, and then I'm looking for teams that give up a lot of points, and I'm hoping for some kind of a matchup there. We found Pittsburgh facing St. Louis. St. Louis has been giving up a lot of points lately. Pittsburgh's been scoring a lot of points lately. All signs point to Pittsburgh having a good night. We're going to look down the list a little bit further. We've got Detroit and Boston. I didn't see a lot there. LA coming off of a back-to-back, playing New Jersey. New Jersey's a pretty good defensive team and don't score a lot of points themselves, as is LA. That game feels like junk. There may be a spot player here or there, but nothing I'm going to target wholesale and heavily. Columbus going up against the New York Islanders. Columbus is in a decent spot, but Columbus is on the road. You know, the Islanders are in an okay spot, but Columbus plays decent defense. According to these numbers that I'm showing you here, that I write down every week, like I mentioned back in part 1, Calgary coming off a back-to-back, playing Montreal. Montreal's been a little bit of a slump lately. Washington's a high-scoring team. They're on a back-to-back. They're in a good spot facing Ottawa. The back-to-back's the only part that worries me. Being on the road, I don't know that we need to worry about that too much with those ultra-elite, top 5, top 6 scoring teams. So I think Washington's fine. Buffalo and Nashville. Buffalo's been scoring a little bit lately. I know their news coming out of Buffalo locally has talked about this may be the beginning of a heater, the beginning of a streak. So, there's a little bit of consideration there. Back-to-back versus back-to-back. San Jose played last night, as did Winnipeg. And although that may or may not matter some, I mean, it obviously suppresses a little bit of the production, but San Jose is in an outstanding spot because Winnipeg's been, a little bit of a dumpster fire lately. And when it comes to matchups in the season-long numbers, San Jose is the 12th highest scoring team in terms of fantasy points. Winnipeg gives up the 8th most points. So, you've got basically a top 10 versus a top 10 matchup. And if you look at the 4-week numbers, you've got San Jose as the 10th highest scoring team, and Winnipeg gives up the 4th most points over a 4-week period. Look at just last week alone, you've got the 7th highest scoring team in San Jose facing the 5th most points given up in Winnipeg. So all 3 of those indicators point towards San Jose having a decent night. Could also be a little bit of a shootout. I don't consider San Jose an elite defense based on the numbers that I look at. But again, they've kind of disappointed a little bit lately. Might be a good night to look at San Jose. Tampa Bay and Chicago, kind of okay. A bunch of mediocrity sitting there. The other game I'd be focused on is Minnesota and Dallas. That one looks like it might go both ways. Minnesota, again, the number 3 team giving, scoring points. Dallas, the number 6 team giving them up over a 4-week period. Minnesota, the 4th highest team. Dallas giving up the 6th most points. But on the flip side of that, Dallas is also over that 4-week period giving the 8th highest, or scoring the 8th highest points, and Minnesota's giving up the 14th most. So again, not exactly a stellar defensive team, so that game might go both ways. That's why I kind of have my eyes set on it as a possible shootout. It's also your latest game and brings in that hammer if you're looking for that type of stuff. Let's focus on just a few of these teams and find out where the production is coming from. St. Louis. Who else did I mention? I mentioned Washington, so we'll include them. Get that out of there. And, of course, it makes us go all the way back to everything. Oh, sorry about that, guys. So we've got Washington and now maybe some Buffalo. San Jose's in a pretty good spot. We'll turn on the Minnesota Wild and the Dallas Stars. I like narrowing down big slates. You know what? I'm going to target the offenses that are in the best spots to score points, and I'm just going to focus on them as much as possible. Like I mentioned in round 1, I'm going to look for the starting lineups, and I'm going to, in tournaments, try and stack those lines completely to get all of the correlation from that line when a goal is scored. In cash games, I'm going to try and spread out a little bit and kind of overlap on the power play. In cash games, I also take a lot of one-off players where it's the only exposure to that game. I hate that in NHL because it's so highly correlated, but it kind of tends, if I had pieces, some of these teams are going to score well, and I want to be exposed to that offense. If I literally just focused on this game and put all my eggs in that basket, that's not cash game safe either. We want to spread out just a little bit. So I know that Murray was in a good spot. I know the over-under was a little bit high at a 6, but for right now, let's just pencil him in as our goalie. I mean, we're going to pay for him, obviously. There are other options. We may get to those later. I'm just trying to kind of get this done quickly because I've got about another 7 or 8 minutes on this video for you. Since I've targeted these teams, I'm going to now shift this off to find out where most of the production comes from off of these teams, and I'm going to see who I want to focus on. Obviously, Brent Burns and San Jose, Sidney Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin. These, your studs. They're going to be up there. I'm looking for some lower prices. I'm trying to get as many of these blue players and green players on my team as possible that are in good spots. Now, I've already identified the good spots by only selecting the teams that I feel are in the best position tonight. So let's look for some cheap guys. Hornquist, Kessel, Sheary. I know Sheary's on the top line. Schultz is one of my favorites down there. So let's quick check the starting lineups here in Pittsburgh. This is the offense that I want to focus on. It's probably the only one that I'll really stack tonight. Sheary gets me exposure to the 1, Malkin to the 2, Hornquist was okay, Kessel to the first power play. He's a bit expensive. Schultz down here. If I did Schultz and Sheary and say Malkin, I've got 3 guys on the first power play unit, and I'm spread out across a couple of different lines. So where I might start is in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to knock down those primary players, Malkin and Sheary and Schultz. And now I'm going to take a look at my 4,600 average salary left, and I'm going to try and find some value in these offenses. I'm going to go back, I'm going to find value. I'll sort by salary, and I'm going to go down to about page 3. Is there anybody green on page 3 at these cheap prices, these 3,200s? No. So I'll come up to page 2. Remember, I'm looking to stay under about 4,400, 4,600. So start at the bottom, start working our way up. Does Vlasic make sense? Yes. Vlasic makes a ton of sense, and I'll show you why. If I come down here to defensemen, and of course I need to go back to the San Jose game. Sorry guys, I'm working as quickly as I can. And when I find Vlasic, I call up his game log. He's a $4,000 player. Over the last 10 games, he's averaging 3.5 points. That's going to get me almost dollar for dollar. 1 point per 1,000 spent. In cash games for DraftKings, we're looking for about a 0.6 multiplier. So around 2,500 or 2.5 to 3 points. If I look at the game log, how consistent is it? 5, 4.5, 0.5, 3, 3, 1, 2, 8.5, 4.5. He's got a little bit of a ceiling of 6, 6 to 8 points, but look, he's got a lot of 3s and 4s in there. That's consistent. I like it. I'm not going to be able to probably spend up for Burns tonight unless I make him my primary, target, and I'd rather take Pittsburgh. So, there's one that I like. If I come down here and I try to find a little bit more value, Hurdle, okay, Getzel, Patrick Sharp in Dallas isn't terrible. So if I'm looking here, I'm going to go down to the San Jose game, and I'm going to look at what were the names that I mentioned. Hurdle was in Dallas. This is the game that I actually want to focus on a little bit more. I don't want to put in too much of the San Jose stuff. So, damn, where was... And now, of course, he could be hurt. This doesn't list everything. Pardon me for getting a little bit lost here. This isn't the most organized way to do this. Hurdle was in San Jose. Patrick Sharp's who I was looking for. So if I come down here and I find Patrick Sharp, he's on the third line, but he's on the second power play unit at 4.6. If I grab Dallas, where's our buddy Sharp? I guess he's not going to be a defenseman now, is he? I'm going to double check and see, what his activity has been lately. It's indicating that he was fine. 3.5 points over, 4,600 in salary. 32 shots on goal is good. It's a lot of activity. I like that number 30. A couple of block shots doesn't help much. Scoring a couple of points here and there. Consistency's been off lately. 3 out of 4 not so good games. He might be more of a tournament player, a little up and down. 9, 8.5, and so, maybe he's my upside. Maybe he's not. So I'm just going to go through the lineup. I'm going to focus on those offenses the way that I want to focus on them. If I'm looking for, a little bit more value, we'll try this maybe one more time. We'll go up to page 1. But I'm trying to stay under for a couple of picks. I'm trying to stay under that number that I had, that 44, 4,600. Klingberg, whatever. Let's look up. We're only getting more expensive. So I've got a couple of shots at value down low there. I may have to take a couple of one-offs, try and get that number back up to the $5,000 to $6,000 range. But that's kind of how you do it. You see how my core is kind of built. You see how I've got a few more pieces in there. If I wanted to take out Pittsburgh and focus on somebody else, or take out Malkin and get my average salary back up there and go more balanced in my lineup structure, I can certainly do that. If I wanted to lead off with Brent Burns tonight, then throw an $8,200 guy in there with a goalie, and you can see that I'm already going to need to go after value to get that number back up there. So if I threw, and it's not the worst thing in the world, if I threw Vlasic in there with him since he's $4,000, my salary is going to jump back up to $4,900. I find another guy in the $35,000 to $4,200 range, I'll get that number back up over $5,000, and I can fill in with some more balanced guys. That's how I tend to build. It leads to high floors. Sometimes you can find some ceilings, but it's pretty cash safe most nights. Play with it. Get in here. Target a few of these offenses that you want and play with it. If you like Pittsburgh, turn off the St. Louis game. You've got San Jose and Winnipeg. You add Minnesota back in here and just play with these 5 offenses. Add Washington in there and see what comes up. You may want to stay, if you want to stay under the $4,000 mark, scroll down here and start looking for some of these guys. Pominville. What's he been doing lately? He had a decent game last night. 3.5 points almost for 4,100. He's in a good spot tonight. Minnesota's an offense that we want to target. He's been consistent lately. Bam. Throw him in there. Now you're over 5,000. You've got your one-off out of that game. Again, mix and match and play. There's a lot of variance to this sport, so you're going to have nights where you do well and do not so well. You're going to have nights where you've targeted the right teams, but you didn't hit the right players because there's just a lot to choose from. But generally speaking, this is how we build NHL lineups. Stay with the higher scoring teams, stay with the higher scoring offenses, and pick the players that score on the top 2 lines as much as you can, and you're going to do well. All right, guys, that's it for the DFS Army for today. We'll talk soon.